Welcome to this episode of Test Gear Tuesday here on VEG TV. I am your host, Jack. Welcome. Now, settle down. Let's get the show on the road. Today we are going to look at my recently acquired BK Precision model number 1760 power supply. This is a triple DC power supply. Not sure exactly when it came out. Looking at Wayback Machine on B&K Precision's website, they've only got them back to 1997. 1997, they did mention this as being one of their modern day power supplies, and it appeared at that point in time it was their top of the line power supply that they had offered. And the item was finally discontinued in about the year 2002. Its replacement was another triple output power supply, the model 1760 Alpha. And the best of my knowledge, from what I could tell just by looking at documentation and pictures, is they are essentially the same machine. The only difference is the 1760 Alpha, as you see here in the photograph, has a new up-to-date faceplate. But looking at the schematic, it appears to be one and the same. In fact, in the 1760 Alpha manual, it looks like all they did was copy pasta from the 1760 manual, because in there it does make a reference to 1760 and not the Alpha. The power supply sold for brand new, as you see here from this screen capture from B&K's website. It sold for $650, while its modern day sells for about $100 more. That's very expensive for a power supply, and I don't know if I personally would spend that kind of bread for a power supply, but you never know. However, I didn't. As I stated in my ham swap video not too long ago, I only paid $20 for this power supply. The guy wanted $25, but I strong-armed him and talked him down to $20. The power supply weighs about 21.5 pounds, and it has a dimension of 5.7 inches by 10.5 inches by 15 inches, or 145 millimeters by 276 millimeters by 381 millimeters. And as stated, it weighs 21 pounds. That's about 10 kilograms. Power requirements on this is 120 volts domestically, plus or minus 10% at 50 hertz. Internationally, it'll run from 120 all the way up to 240 at 10%, 50 to 60 hertz. And the power consumption fully loaded is approximately 350 watts. One thing I thought was kind of interesting about this device was, looking at it, you would think this is A channel, B channel, C channel, but it's not. This is A channel, this is B channel, and that's C channel. I find that a little confusing. I don't know what the rhyme or reason, the logic is for that. The only thing I could think is maybe they're thinking you put it on your workbench and this is going to be the closest one to you if you put it far away on the left. What a coinkydink, because that's exactly what's going to happen on my workbench. This is going to set to the far left of me on my workbench, which will make this the closest. So I'm glad they designed it just for me. Looking at the controls here, we have our coarse control, our fine, and then our current control. And that's how it is on this side as well. For C channel, all you have is just I almost said a volume control. I guess in a way it is. You're turning up the volts with this control right here. Can you hear me now? These banana jacks, we have a negative, positive, and then chassis earth ground. And that's also true on this side. This side we have no earth ground. This side here, channel A and channel B, goes from 0 to 30 volts. And our current is about 2.5 amps. C channel runs from 4.6 to 5 volts, and it has a fixed current of 5 amps. When I bought this power supply, all that was visually wrong with it was had a broken negative banana jack, which you could see here in this photograph. And the case looked at the time that it was really scarred up, scuffed up. But after cleaning it, it turned out really, really nice. Very minimal amount of scratches on the top. And I'm sure if I took some wax to it, that would clean that up, no problem. The power supply in question, wasn't sure if it worked. I figured if nothing else, 20 bucks worth of parts, fantastic. Brought it home, put it on the Variac, and found out real quick that yes, the power supply did fire up and it did output. It was not consecutive, was not reading the same numbers, was not reading what I should have got, but that was an easy fix we'll talk about in a moment. This project was completed by my wife, Mrs. VEG, and she was really thrilled and really jazzed at doing this. This was a fun project for her to do. The only complaint about it actually was the service manual telling you how to do this. Some of the steps were out of whack and it just was not proper. So if you have one of these and you're going to service it, make sure you read, do a dry run first, and outline as you go from there as you need. When we tore this apart, as you can see here in the photographs, we have a stacked board. Not a problem. We just rip off the face and done. Well, it wasn't quite so easy. As you see, this face on the bottom here is pop riveted in. So you had to remove the top board and separate the face. And by separating the face, removing about, I don't know, it seemed like about 40 connections, and B&K enjoyed hot glue. All the connections were hot glued. Took me a little bit to pick that off, got that off. Key to that success, if you come across a lot of hot glue you need to remove, rubbing alcohol is your friend. Just rub it on there, drop some on there, let it rest for about 5 minutes, come back with a screwdriver or something, and you're able to pick it off fairly easy. So we got that all unplugged, separated, pulled out of there, and once we did that, she unsoldered these 3 plugs. These boards, luckily, are on separate boards. So we unplugged these 3 terminals and removed the board, which you can see here in the photograph, and at which time we put a new negative terminal on. The negative terminal we put on was from my collection of junk. I had some that I'd bought from Radio Shack. If you remember when Radio Shack went out of business, both the first and second time, yours truly went down and went on a massive shopping spree and bought a lot of stock. So I have a lifetime of supplies on hand, and that's no lie. So she got that put on, found it really easy to put it in, put it on. We went over and we checked solder side and component side. Everything looked just fine, saw absolutely no issues. Put everything back in. She calibrated it. Unfortunately, we do not have a 4.5 digit multimeter, so we did the best we can with what we got, and really that's all one could ever really do. So it's calibrated. It's not exactly spot on, but it's pretty doggone close. And for what I'm doing, I don't need lab grade testing. Just in the neighborhood works out just fine. We're going to fire this up and look at it. I mean, I really don't know how else to test a power supply, but we're going to do that. But before we do that, we're going to spin it around and we'll look at it and see how nice and girthy this really is. I'm really jazzed. I'm really excited to include this on my workbench. As you can see here in this photograph, what I've been using up to this point in time was one of these Chinese linear power supplies, and I've been very, very fat and happy with it. I've got absolutely no complaint with it. The only complaint I do have, and it's not necessarily of the power supply. It's just a limitation of what I have. Sometimes, as you know, you're working on things, you need a second or even a third power supply. So I'm looking very much forward of having this in line to take advantage of that option when it's needed. One thing I also did do, because I wasn't sure if this was a regulated power supply, in the manual it talked about it being a pre-regulated, and I wasn't too sure about that verbiage. I hooked a CB radio up to this and fired it up and looked at the voltage and the current, and I had no loss in neither one. So it held fairly steady, so I'm very happy with that. So let's go ahead and spin this around for you so we could see. And then we'll go back over the rest of the buttons because it just dawned on me I forgot to do that. So here is the nice girthy side. Won't show you the other side. It looks just like that. There's the top. And this is the bottom side. Let me put my feet under there real quick. So here we have a fuse, and if I remember correctly, I have to look at the photographs, I think there's also another fuse on board. And then our big heatsink fins, and then a couple of stickers. And one other thing to say about this device does not have a fan. So hopefully the heatsink will be able to keep this thing nice and cool and regulated. I don't plan on really using it for heavy current draw, but if I did, something to keep be mindful about. And here's a close-up look of the front panel. Here we have our constant voltage light, constant current light. We have our volt amp switch for this side, volt amp switch for that side. We could run this independent or tracking. So if I wanted this side at 12 volts and this at 30, they could work independently, not an issue. Same with the amperage. If I needed both sides to work at 12 volts, or I needed to regulate it as I went, then I could just set that to tracking, and from this side I can control my voltage, and this side over here would also follow. I think the amperage stays the same. I haven't played with it enough to remember that aspect of it. If I put it in series or parallel over here, what that means is series is, as I just spoke about, the independent tracking thing. If I put it in parallel, then I could use the amperage from both sides to double my output amperage. So instead of the 2.5, I could have 5 amps output, and everything is controlled on this side. So I wouldn't really, for the amperage, I wouldn't go over here. Everything is done on here. And this button here toggles between channel A and channel C. So if I wanted to look at what I'm doing here, I just push that in and control it here. And then I've got my overage light for this one as well. And then we got the same idiot lights over here as we did over there, constant courage. Okay, for our next parlor trick, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and fire this up. I went ahead and took the liberty of hooking up a voltometer, and we got it set on DC volt. Got all my controls turned to the left. Pomona cable's plugged in, and let's go ahead and turn this on. Gotta say neato. And as you see, the meter is reading 9.5 millivolts out. Let's go ahead and turn this up. Again, I really don't know how to demo a power supply. And yeah, I think I have a digit that's goofing up over on this one, as you can see right there. So a little off, but nothing too major. It's within the neighborhood. I'm sure it's probably even within its percentage of out of range spec. It'll definitely work for now until I can get a proper meter. So that's how that works. Of course, the current ain't going to affect it, but I'll turn that control up just for the heck of it. So let's go ahead and turn this all back down. And we'll plug into this one. Okay, so let's see if we could show some of these neat parlor tricks that I was talking about. So as we saw, we got independent, and if we want to go tracking, there we go. You can see this is going up. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's test something. Let's see, why do we have different outputs? Oh, well, looky there. That doubled my voltage. Okay, well, look at that. I just learned something here on screen with you. Wow, how awesome. Wow, that's pretty awesome. I did not know that. 61 volts. Cool. Now I just got to find something to, I don't know, fry now or whatever. That is awesome. I know there's also a way that you could make one positive and one negative. I don't know that parlor trick yet. Okay, so what if we push that button? What does that do for us? Okay, so I went from series to parallel, and we're still in tracking mode. Okay, so as you see, there we go. Both of them are tracking the same, and it doesn't matter where I put this control. It makes no no difference on that. Very cool. So turn the tracking off, and we're just in parallel. So that does nothing. And then we'll come down here to this power supply. So we're going that way with the buttons. And you can see now we could adjust that. Okay, and I believe we've already seen this one. Okay, let me go ahead and set up for a current test. All right, so here is the setup. I've got a 1 ohm, 100 watt resistor, power resistor in series from this side into the meter, and that thing will get smoking hot before you know it. So let's check this out. We'll set this over on amps. Let's just turn this up a little bit. Oh. Let's put our meter on amps. There we go. And let's go ahead and turn up our amp switch. Okay, 2.2 amps. So we see that side's working. All right, I got the same setup over here on this side. And we'll turn the voltage up just a little bit. Look at our amps. And there we go. And this one here, we're going to switch to C channel. Oops, you see I went over. And the only way to fix that overage is to turn it off. The manual tells you to calibrate it at about 6.2 amps, but I found that we could not get to 6.2 amps. It was about 6 amps, or was it 5.2 or 6.2? Yeah, 6.2. And then it would shut off. See, my overage light is on. And blammo. So about 6. So just out of curiosity, let's go ahead and turn this one off. You know how we were doing splitting the channels, and we got oh, gotta do that anyway. So we turn up our amps. Alright, so there's full amperage on that channel. And if I do put it in parallel, I believe. Okay, both in tracking and parallel, as you see, we get the 4.2 amps. Okay, so let's unplug that, and then let's come to this side, see what happens. Okay, and for the heck of it, okay, so that's something new I just learned right there. And then one last test to show you that this power supply does offer one other feature that we're accustomed to on, newer power supplies. Turn up the volts. Positive. Negative. So it automatically cuts off on shorts. So that is kind of cool. Okay, there we have it. We have the B&K Precision model number 1760 triple power supply, and I'm looking very much forward in incorporating this into the workbench, which will happen right after I'm done with this video. So thanks for watching. I do appreciate it, and then we will catch you in the next video, whatever that will be. Thanks for watching. As always, have a great one.